The boardroom became so silent that the ticking wall clock sounded louder than thunder. Every executive watched as CEO Victoria Langford stood from her chair, her cold eyes fixed on the tired single father standing across the Polish table. With dozens of managers present and several international clients connected through video conference, she gave him an impossible choice. Either kneel in front of everyone and apologize for disgracing the company, or hand over his employee badge and leave forever. No one dared to speak, no one dared to breathe. Yet within minutes, something happened that no one had predicted. Phones began ringing without stopping. Urgent emails flooded every executive's inbox. And one by one, the company's biggest business contracts were suddenly frozen. The woman who believed power could never be challenged was about to discover that respect is worth far more than authority. Before we continue, if you believe kindness, respect, and second chances can change lives, please like this video, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, share this story with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel Kindness. Your support helps us spread inspiring stories across the world. Michael Carter never expected life to become so difficult. 4 years earlier, his beloved wife Emma had passed away after a sudden illness, leaving him alone to raise their 5-year-old daughter, Lily. Since that painful day, every morning started before sunrise. He cooked breakfast, packed Lily's lunch, brushed and braided her hair after teaching himself through online videos, dropped her at school, and rushed across the city to reach work before anyone noticed he had already lived. Half a day before 9 a.m. every evening, he hurried back home to help with homework, cook dinner, wash clothes, and comfort Lily whenever she missed her mother. His life was exhausting, but every smile on his daughter's face reminded him that giving up was never an option. Michael worked as an operations coordinator for Langford Global Solutions, one of the country's fastest-growing consulting companies. He wasn't famous inside the company, but everyone depended on him. He solved problems before they became disasters, stayed late without complaining, trained new employees with patience, and quietly accepted responsibility whenever projects became difficult. Clients trusted him because he always kept his word. His coworkers admired him because he never sought attention. While others competed for promotions, Michael focused on doing honest work and providing a better future for Lily. Everything changed on a rainy Monday morning, just before an important client presentation. Lily's school called. She had collapsed with a high fever and needed immediate medical attention. Michael informed his supervisor, picked up his daughter, spent hours in the hospital, and remained beside her until the doctors assured him she would recover. That evening, after Lily finally fell asleep, Michael opened his laptop and worked until nearly 3 inches the morning to complete every unfinished report. Despite his effort, one important document reached the executive office 30 minutes later than expected. It was the only delay Michael had caused in nearly 6 years. Unfortunately, CEO Victoria Langford saw it differently. Known throughout the company for ruling through fear, Victoria believed mistakes deserved public punishment. She had built her reputation on demanding perfection, and anyone who disappointed her became an example for everyone else. The next morning, she ordered an emergency executive meeting and instructed Michael to attend. The conference room overlooked the city skyline. Senior executives, investors, department heads, and international partners watched as Michael entered wearing the same simple navy suit he had hurriedly ironed before dawn. His eyes revealed another sleepless night, yet he stood respectfully with quiet confidence. Victoria projected the delayed report onto the giant screen. Instead of discussing the successful project, she spent several minutes criticizing Michael's character, accusing him of lacking discipline and commitment. She ignored his years of loyal service. She ignored the countless weekends he had sacrificed for the company. Most importantly, she ignored the reason behind the delay, a sick little girl waiting for her father. Michael remained silent, not because he agreed, but because he believed dignity often speaks louder than anger. Victoria mistook his silence for weakness. She stepped closer and delivered words that shocked everyone. She announced that Michael had one final opportunity to prove his loyalty. If he truly respected the company, he would kneel before everyone and apologize for embarrassing senior leadership. If he refused, security would escort him out immediately and he would never work in the industry again. A wave of disbelief swept through the room. Several executives lowered their eyes. Some secretly hoped Michael would apologize simply to protect his job. Michael looked down for a moment. He thought about Lily. He thought about the rent due next week. He thought about the medical bills sitting unopened on his kitchen table. For a heartbreaking second, he almost surrendered. Then another memory filled his heart. It was the final promise he had made beside his wife's hospital bed. He had promised Emma that Lily would grow up seeing a father who valued honesty and self-respect more than fear. Slowly, Michael lifted his head. His shoulders straightened. He stayed standing, without anger, without shouting, without hatred. The silence became almost unbearable. Then suddenly, dozens of mobile phones vibrated at the same time. The chief financial officer stared at his screen and turned pale. Another executive gasped. Someone whispered, "This can't be happening." Within minutes, every major international client had received reports about the humiliating treatment of an employee during a leadership meeting. One anonymous attendee had quietly recorded part of the incident and shared it with several corporate ethics committees overseeing partnership agreements. The consequences arrived immediately. A billion-dollar infrastructure contract was suspended. 2 international companies froze negotiations. 3. Government partnerships demanded urgent explanations. Investors delayed funding approvals. Within 10 minutes, every major contract awaiting executive signatures had been placed on hold pending an independent review of the company's workplace culture. Panic spread through the boardroom. Victoria's confident smile disappeared. For the first time in her career, she realized fear could destroy a company much faster than competition ever could. The board of directors launched an emergency investigation. During the following weeks, hundreds of employees submitted confidential testimonies describing years of intimidation, public humiliation, impossible workloads, and ignored complaints. Human resources files revealed warnings that had mysteriously disappeared before reaching the board. Michael's employment record painted a completely different picture. Client after client praised his professionalism. Coworkers described him as the employee who quietly rescued impossible projects. One customer revealed that Michael had once worked through an entire weekend, sleeping only a few hours in the office, simply to prevent a project from failing. The directors were stunned. They realized the company had nearly destroyed one of its most valuable employees. Victoria was removed as CEO pending the investigation. A new leadership team immediately apologized to every employee. Flexible schedules for parents were introduced. Employee wellness programs expanded. Anonymous reporting systems became mandatory. Public humiliation was permanently banned as a management practice. Several months later, the board invited Michael to become director of employee operations, helping rebuild trust throughout the organization. At first, he hesitated. Power had never interested him, but then he imagined a young employee standing alone in that same conference room years from now. If accepting the position could prevent another family from experiencing what his family had endured, he knew he had to say yes. His leadership transformed the workplace. Managers learned to encourage rather than threaten. Employees became more productive because they finally felt respected. Client confidence returned. The suspended contracts were gradually restored, and new partnerships followed, because companies wanted to work with an organization that valued people as much as profits. At home, life became brighter too. Michael finally attended Lily's school performances without checking work emails every few minutes. They spent weekends in the park feeding ducks, planting flowers, and sharing ice cream, while laughing about ordinary things that once seemed impossible to enjoy. One evening, Lily asked her father if heroes always wore uniforms. Michael smiled gently. He told her that real heroes often wore ordinary clothes, carried heavy responsibilities, and quietly chose kindness even when life became unfair. Years later, employees still remembered the day a humble single father refused to surrender his dignity. They remembered that true leadership isn't measured by titles, wealth, or fear. It is measured by compassion, integrity, and the courage to stand tall when the world demands you kneel. If this story touched your heart, please support our mission by liking this video, sharing it with family and friends, leaving a heartfelt comment, and subscribing to Kindness. Every act of support helps spread stories that remind people goodness still exists. Special request, before this video ends, comment "Kindness always wins" if you believe no parent should ever have to sacrifice their dignity just to provide for their child. Because in the end, contracts can be rebuilt, companies can recover, and fortunes can return. But a child's memory of watching a parent choose honor over humiliation becomes a lesson that lasts forever. And sometimes the strongest person in the room isn't the one giving the orders. It's the quiet father who refuses to kneel, even when everything he owns is at risk.